It is such a quiet thing to fall, but far more terrible is to admit it.
Kreia, one of the best, if not the best characters in the Star Wars universe. In my previous video, I didn't feel like I did her enough justice. Kreia's character goes beyond just the plot of KOTOR 2. She's a look into the concept of existentialism. The reason why Kreia is such a good character is because many of her themes are based in the real world, and have been around for some time. Unlike characters such as Emperor Palpatine or Obi-Wan, who are very clearly one way or the other, dark or light, Kreia is much more complex than simply being good or evil. Existentialism, you see, is a rather complex theme, but I will do my best to break it down in the easiest way possible. A philosophy that emphasizes the uniqueness and isolation of the individual experience in a hostile or indifferent universe, regards human existence as unexplainable, and stresses freedom of choice and responsibility for the consequences of one's acts. Kreia's views on morality aren't black and white. This is something she constantly expresses through the plot of KOTOR 2.
If you seek to aid everyone that suffers in the galaxy, you will only weaken yourself and weaken them. It is the internal struggles, when fought and won on their own, that yield the strongest rewards. You stole that struggle from them, cheapened it.
This is sort of the breakaway from the traditional Star Wars views and values, which would be like the Jedi helping those in need regardless of the consequence, or the Jedi rescuing the Republic. Kreia thinks this can create even more problems, as you have to let people overcome their issues on their own. This is a central theme in the existentialism ideology. Existentialism is about free will, human free will, and that a person is at his or her best when they are struggling against their own individual nature or fighting for their life. The idea of existentialism is that you are born, then you try and find your meaning. Not that you were simply born with meaning, like some schools of thought would believe. We are not born with a set path or fate to guide us through life. This is likely why Kreia is not a fan of the Force, as the Force is very much about fate and being born on a specific path. Now, existentialism is far more complex than these themes, but I just wanted to flirt with the ideas a bit so you guys could have a better understanding of it, and then by association have a better understanding of Kreia. Kreia is a figurehead in the Star Wars version of the Age of Enlightenment as well. If you guys aren't familiar with the Age of Enlightenment, the Age of Enlightenment is the period in the history of Western thought and culture stretching roughly from the mid-decades of the 17th century through the 18th century, characterized by dramatic revolutions in science, philosophy, society, and politics. It's categorized as a period where people started to question religion and things that were seen as absolute truths. Kreia's movement mirrors this, as even in her early years as a Jedi Master teaching students, most notably Revan
Was power. It was like staring into the heart of the Force. Even then you could see the Jedi he would slay etched on his soul.
She always had a curious mind, and her time spent as a Jedi historian most likely furthered this desire for knowledge. She began to question the Jedi teachings and views on things like the Force and lightsabers. She would even ask questions concerning the Force and its importance to her students. This was something the Jedi Council wasn't very fond of. When Revan went off to war, Kreia was blamed for his falling to the dark side, but Kreia didn't see it as a fall at all. In fact, when she was exiled and followed his footsteps, she came to the conclusion that Revan did what he did for the greater good of the universe, not because he fell to the dark side. Kreia quote, "Perhaps Revan never fell. The difference between a fall and a sacrifice is sometimes difficult, but I feel that Revan understood that difference, more than anyone knew. The galaxy would have fallen if Revan had not gone to war." Perhaps Kreia's hate for the Force stems from her beliefs in existentialism. She doesn't seem to enjoy the idea that some worldly force or other is pulling the strings behind the curtain, and your personal choices seem to have little impact in the entire scheme of things.
Explain something to me.
I do not have the years required, nor the desire to indulge you.
If she served in the war, well, Jedi are supposed to be tough, capable.
Yes, and what are they without the Force? Take the greatest Jedi Knight, strip away the Force, and what remains? They rely on it, depend on it more than they know. Watch as one tries to hold a blaster, as they try to hold a lightsaber, and you will see nothing more than a woman, or a man, a child.
This quote reinforces that without the Force, a Jedi is nothing more than a normal man or woman. Kreia seems to both love and hate the Force. She recognizes its influence and power, but at the same time seems to loathe the idea that everyone is essentially a puppet on a string for the Force to control and manipulate.
It is said that the Force has a will. It has a destiny for us all. I wield it, but it uses us all, and that is abhorrent to me, because I hate the Force. I hate hate that it seems to have a will, that it would control us to achieve some measure of balance when countless lives are lost.
Kreia likes to be in control. This is a very important part of her character. She believes in an eternal locus of control, where she believes you have as much power as you possibly can have over your own destiny and things in your life. The Force doesn't allow this, however, as the Force has its own agenda. You can think about it as the Force being the external locus of control, that you are out of control of your life, while Kreia believes in more of an internal locus of control. So the reality is probably more of a mix in between. Kreia, however, should not be confused with being a nihilist, as she does have beliefs in her own teachings and message. Also remember, she believed that apathy was death.
So you will do nothing. Apathy is death, worse than death, because at least a rotting corpse feeds the beasts and insects.
Apathy is death.
Apathy is death.
Apathy is death.
Apathy is death.
Statement. Apathy is death.
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 And a nihilist would be apathetic by definition. Kreia believes that the Force extends beyond the Jedi and the Sith, and that traditional views of morality, unlike the other members of the Sith Triumvirate, like Nihilus and Scion, who wish to see the death of the Jedi and death of all that are living, Nihilus' name is derived from nihilism, which is his belief in that life is essentially meaningless. He is a contrast to Kreia, who does believe in a meaning in life, but that the meanings are individually derived. Though Kreia leans to an existentialism ideology, she could also be part moral nihilist, which has the belief that nothing is inherently right or wrong. But then again, Kreia seems to be against the idea of harming innocence for the sake of it, so it's unlikely that she's really a nihilist. Again, that doesn't mean that nihilists necessarily harm people just because they want to, but they wouldn't be against it necessarily because, well, they don't really believe there's anything wrong with it. Darth Nihilus feasts on all life, and if not stopped, would have surely feasted on the whole universe, as the Force is in all things, as you learn.
Do you think I seek the death of all living things? There is no victory in such things. I do not want to win our war like this, little Jedi. When I win, I wish it to be because I was right, my teachings true.
Kreia said in the previous quote, had no desire for the death of all life. She wants people to understand that her teachings are right, ultimately. Kreia's main goal was to deafen the whole galaxy to the Force, to free everything from the control of the Force. This is why she had so much personal interest in the Exile, as the Exile was a wound in the Force, much like Darth Nihilus, except the Exile was someone that Kreia could mold and possibly teach to listen to her lessons.
I would have killed the galaxy to preserve you. I would have let the galaxy die. You are more rare than you know, and what you have taught yourself must not be allowed to die. You are not a Jedi, not truly, and it is for that that I love you.
Kreia wasn't able to deafen the galaxy to the Force, but she did in her last moments seem to be proud of that all people to succeed was the Exile.
But in you, I see the potential to see the Force die, to turn away from its will, and that is what pleases me. You are beautiful to me, Exile. A dead spot in the Force, an emptiness in which its will might be denied.
Although Kreia seemed to actively do things that would weaken the Republic, from her perspective it was because she was ultimately trying to strengthen it. Kreia quote, "A culture's teachings, and most importantly the nature of its people, achieve definition and conflict. They find themselves lack. Too long did the Republic remain unchallenged. It is a stagnant beast that labors for breath, and has for centuries. The Jedi Order was the heart that sustained its sickness. Now the Jedi are lost. We shall see how long the Republic can survive." You have to realize Kreia is not a perfect character, however. In fact, she is extremely flawed. When she resurrected Hanhar and tasked him to kill Mira on Malachor, the only reasoning behind it was because she thought it would strengthen Mira. Kreia seems to do things she thinks ultimately will help someone regardless of their input on the situation. She essentially claims to know better than they know. She is a manipulator and a betrayer, much like the Sith title implied. Knowing of Atris's temptations toward the dark side, she helped push Atris to falling further to the dark side, merely because she wanted to show the Exile that even the mightiest or holiest of characters could fall victim to supporting another belief.
It is such a quiet thing to fall, but far more terrible is to admit it.
Contradictions and confusion in motivations for Kreia. Kreia has many contradictions, most notably being her views on the Force.
Use it as I would use a poison, and in the hopes of understanding it, I will learn the way to kill it. But perhaps these are the excuses of an old woman who has grown to rely on a thing she despises.
For someone who hates something so much, she's spent much of her life obsessing about it.
It is like a cloud, a mist that drifts from living creature to creature, set in motion by currents and eddies. It is the eye of the storm, the passions of all living things turned into energy, into a chorus. It is the rising swell at the end of life, the promise of new territories and new blood, the call of new mysteries in the dark.
Here, Kreia romanticizes about the Force. She almost speaks about it like it's like a previous lover or love itself. Yet her ultimate goal was to rid the galaxy of the Force. Another quote: "The absence of the Force is like knowing what you want to say and never finding the words. It is a chorus replaced with silence, hearing teachings without meaning. It is like having a beloved pupil to whom you have shared everything, sacrificed everything, and then have them turn from you and forget all you were." Kreia's hate of the Force likely stems from it being forcibly removed from her by Darth Nihilus as well. She speaks from a personal experience in the quote above, and much like comparison to love, one would state, it is better to live without than to live with, but that's a discussion for a romantic poet or something, or at least one who was burnt romantically. Kreia's teachings previously failed in regards to Sion and Nihilus, as ultimately they betrayed her. Kreia essentially taught Nihilus how to destroy all life because she wanted to teach him how to remove the Force from the galaxy. However, as Nihilus was a nihilist, he didn't really have a desire and the purpose that she had for him, and instead, he simply wanted to feast on the entire universe because, well, he was hungry. In conclusion, we know that Kreia was inspired by Chris Avellone, the lead designer and writer for KOTOR 2. His desire to break from the traditional mold of the Star Wars hero and villain is what served as inspiration for this character. Kreia served as Avalon's voice, as he pointed out hypocrisies in the limits of the Jedi and Sith belief systems. Kreia is a character that upholds an existentialism ideology, a belief that free will and developing through your personal decisions is more important than some overarching dogma or morality you should follow. Like in the Age of Enlightenment, Kreia breaches the question of whether or not we should just blindly follow religious ideology, except in Kreia's case, this religious ideology is the Force and the Jedi code concerning the Force. If you are still asking questions as to whether Kreia was Sith or a Jedi, you are failing to understand the complexity of her character, and frankly, falling victim to the same belief system she was trying so desperately to teach Exile to move past. If you remember the quote from the game, I cannot force you to listen or reason, only hope that you will grow past these infantile delusions of right and wrong. Kreia's ultimate motivation are hard to understand, as there's multiple schools of thought. Did she want to teach the Exile her lessons and hope the Exile would spread these throughout the galaxy? Or did she truly want to see the death of the Force? We might never know, but this is what makes the story and Kreia so fascinating to study. Hopefully this video gives you a better understanding of Kreia as a character, and her contribution to the plot in KOTOR 2. Kreia is my favorite character ever, and is a large reason why I hold the beliefs I hold on morality and what is right and wrong. I will be doing a KOTOR 1 versus KOTOR 2 video soon, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching the video, and if you liked it, please feel free to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Nerdslayer out.